All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 8th meeting of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items to get us started. First, our notice of non-discrimination. You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. You can read the full notice of your rights and protections at www.bostonmpo.org/MPO_non_discrimination. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions of the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, please contact me, Stella Jordan of MPO staff, at sjordan@ctps.org or at 857-702-3675. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please, if you haven't done so already, rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. You may mute and unmute yourselves, but please do remain on mute unless you're actively speaking. And to participate in the discussion, please select the raised hand function. You can find that by either clicking on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raised hand button at the bottom, or you can find that in the reactions button in the toolbar, and the chair will call on you. And if you're joining us by phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact me via the chat box, via email at sjordan@ctps.org, or by phone at 857-702-3675. And with that, I think we can get started with some introductions. Before I hand it back to Len, I'll just introduce myself and a new teammate real quick. So my name is Stella Jordan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Public Engagement Program Manager at the Boston Region MPO, and I'd like to introduce my new colleague and the newest addition to the engagement team here. Gia, do you want to say hello to the group?
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Gia, and like Stella mentioned, I am the new Public Engagement Coordinator. Can you hear me all right?
No, you're very faint, Gia. I mean, I can turn my volume up, but compared to Stella's, you're very faint.
Sorry about that. It's the microphone, but I'll just speak louder. But hi everyone, my name is Gia. I'm the new Public Engagement Coordinator, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks, Gia. And Stella, we have a lot of people here, which is a good thing to have me, but I think it's just too many to go through introductions. So I'm just gonna ask people that when you speak, if you wish to introduce yourself, fine. And if we get to the end of the meeting and we have a lot of time, then we can go around and just introduce ourselves. So with that, I'll ask for public comment. Just raise your hand electronically. Yeah, public comment, because the nature of the screen is such I can't see you if you just raise your hand physically. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is a discussion of the MPO's freight program, and that's going to be by Sravanti Narayanan, and please correct me if I mispronounce your name.
Thank you, Len. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sravanti Gopalan Narayanan. I'm a transportation planner at CTPS, and I am also the freight program manager at CTPS. So today I would like to give an overview, a brief overview of the Federal Fiscal Year 2024 freight program. And at the end of the presentation, I have a section for discussion where I would like to get your thoughts and ideas on future studies and focus areas for the freight program. Next slide, please. So I would like to just briefly give an introduction of what the freight program is. So as we all know, the movement of goods is and will always be critical for the availability of necessities for our life and as well as for the economic activity in the Boston region. So to reflect that, planning for policies and infrastructure that enable the movement of freight and goods by road, rail, water, and air is mandatory as part of the federal 3C process, that is continuing, comprehensive, and cooperative planning process. So freight planning at the Boston Metropolitan Organization is concerned with freight movement between metropolitan areas with a focus at the regional and local levels. So here I have like two examples of the studies that are part of or are related to freight. So the first one is integrating transit and truck priority, which is a recent study that was completed in 2022. And the other one is decarbonization in the freight and logistics sector in the North Suffolk area, which is an ongoing project that is expected to be completed soon. So a little bit about the integrating transit and truck priority project. In this project, the possibility of transit vehicles and trucks sharing roadway priority, such as dedicated lanes or streets on arterial roadways is discussed. And this memo also examines several areas where freight and transit may share roadway space within the Boston region, but in particular looked into Summer Street in South Boston Watertown, that is Seaport area. The memo also includes literature review, and it also discusses a series of case studies from around the US as well as elsewhere. To give you an overview of what the major findings were, there is definitely a potential for shared interest in roadway design and priority measures for freight and transit. However, there seems to be shortage in the quantitative data on shared transit and freight priority. So the study also recommends some follow-up action items, which are data collection of before and after data from the Summer Street project, and to expand the literature review and to conduct more stakeholder interviews to understand this topic better. Also to identify characteristics for defining potential shared priority corridors or areas, since this is relevantly a new topic of interest. So ultimately, there is definitely a potential for a phase 2 of this study, and it is hoped to be sometime in the near future. The second example that is pointed here is the decarbonization in the freight and logistics sector in the North Suffolk area, which is, as I mentioned earlier, is an ongoing project. So I would love to give you just a very brief glimpse of what is included in the project. So this is a federal fiscal year 2023 UPWP, that is Unified Planning Work Program study, and the scope was approved by the MPO in November 2022. The study area encompasses a concentration of vital light industrial as well as industrial uses in North Suffolk County and a small part of the northern Middlesex County, including parts of Chelsea, Everett, Revere, East Boston, and Winthrop. So in this memo, we will discuss the need for decarbonization, freight and logistics industry in the study area, challenges, strategies for decarbonization, next steps that we've identified based on all these methods, and recommendations on the future studies. So the final product of this project is going to be a story map, and this story map will potentially be shared and presented with the MPO in one of the meetings that is upcoming in December. Next slide, please. So to begin with, when I was drafting the work plan for the freight program, I wanted it to like align with what our agency goals are. So some of the midterm agency goals that are identified are safety, climate resiliency, equity, and uncertainty. So based on that, the midterm goals for freight program, that is for 3 to 5 years from now, with a multi-year planning focus and approach, are safety, sustainability, and decarbonization, freight dashboard, freight travel demand modeling, nexus of freight and land use, technical assistance, and public outreach and engagement. So to give you an overview of what each of these items are, safety, in terms of safety, I want to focus on the vulnerable road users, since recently the state passed the vulnerable road user law. And I'm curious to know what the freight and vulnerable road user data, how can they be related? That's like the focus of safety. Sustainability and decarbonization, as I mentioned earlier, there is a phase 1 of the decarbonization project that I just mentioned that aligns with this goal, freight dashboard. So the MPO staff have been working on a freight dashboard and they are developing that to include all the information that is available related to freight and to have all that data in like one area, which can be interactive map. So that's the focus of freight dashboard. The next one is freight travel demand modeling. This is a relatively new topic to me. So I'm interested to know what the freight framework could look like for the MPO. So that's about the TDM, travel demand modeling. And the next one is nexus of freight and land use. So this is there are a couple of studies that MEPC is doing. So I'm planning to like wait for what those studies are based on their recommendations. There could be some of follow-up studies that we as the MPO staff can do. So that's about nexus of freight and land use. The next one is technical assistance. We have a program which is technical assistance where the municipalities can they can request studies depending on what the necessity is. So that's one of the focus areas in the freight program. And finally, public outreach and engagement, which is a very crucial part because getting ideas from the public and getting their thoughts on the projects and studies that we work on is very critical for the recommendations that we come up with. So this is public outreach and engagement is it's common for all the projects or ideas that I've discussed previously. It is a common item for that is applicable for each of these items that are discussed. Next slide, please. So based on the midterm goals that I just discussed, for this particular federal fiscal year 2024, we would like to focus on the data infrastructure, that is to focus on the freight dashboard, because it is really in good shape and it is in a good place to make it public. So there are just a couple of other layers that can be added to it so that folks who are interested in learning about freight or planners or people who work in work related to freight can access this dashboard to get information on the freight network and other related infrastructure data. So that's one of the main focus areas. And as I mentioned earlier, safety is it's a very crucial topic. And since there's the new vulnerable road user law, there is a potential that data on crashes related to pedestrian and bicyclists and other vulnerable road users might be available in the near future. So this particular action item will focus on getting data and doing an analysis of crash related analysis, basically. The next item is decarbonization of freight. As I mentioned earlier, we are wrapping up the North Suffolk study. So this is to emphasize that decarbonization, to emphasize the need for decarbonization. The next item is continued freight-related MPO activities. And this is an ongoing effort. As MPO staff, we are required to do certain certain tasks every year. So this particular action item is referred to the items that we as MPO staff have to look into every year and keep them updated. Other freight related activities include branding, as well as looking into updating the website and working with other teams, and also to participate in the RTAC meetings and meetings similar to RTAC, where there is a freight specific conversation. And there are also a couple of other freight related activities to basically emphasize the importance of freight and the role of freight in the modes of transportation in general. Next slide, please. So this slide so for the discussion, we thought we could use an interactive platform such as Mentimeter to come up with prompts and to get ideas on folks to get ideas on freight in general, as well as specific to some of the topics that we've discussed so far. So Stella will share the instructions and the link of the Mentimeter in the chat. I will give a couple of minutes for folks to, just open it and get it started.
Yeah. So as Shravanti said, let me just drop my share for a moment so that I can pull the Menti up. But if you follow the prompt on this slide here and go to www.menti.com and enter the code 2809334, that should bring you to an interactive page. You could also use the QR code there to scan on your phone if that is easier. And bear with me while I switch screens here. And I will also drop a direct link into the chat that you can click on, and that should lead you to this page. All right. And so the 3 questions that we had on the previous screen are now on a Menti screen where we can see responses coming in. We can read these off, and if you're having trouble accessing the Mentimeter, or if you prefer to use Zoom functions, feel free to just drop comments in the chat for each question, or raise your hand and just say a comment verbally and we can add it to the discussion. But this first question is asking, what do you think are high priority topics for research or future studies related to freight? So as Shravanti was saying, we're really interested in getting this group's input and perspective on what we can continue to do through the freight program at the MPO to look into specific areas of interest. So responses coming in, and again, feel free to put these in the Zoom chat as well.
I'm actually trying to find the raise hand button. I don't seem to have it anymore. I have all kinds of a new status bar here, taskbar.
Oh, so there's, oh, go ahead, Stella.
Oh, I was just going to say, Zoom is getting complicated these days, but feel free to just shout out a comment, Anna Christina, if you have one.
No, I just don't know if it's worth it because it's not a, economies of scale sort of thing, but I'd really like to see a study on the ridiculousness of these delivery trucks. They're not going to a multimodal center. They're going out from there, like the Amazon delivery vans, double parking. It's huge. I mean, I'm surprised it hasn't become a huge issue already, but it irritates me as a driver when I have to deal with it. And I can't imagine I'm alone. So I'm wondering if there's anything in the works for that.
Right. I think that's a great point. And you kind of brought up another area of discussion that I thought about. So has anyone heard about the Boston's pilot program on e-cargo bikes? You can either raise your hand, or there's also the raise hand function in more. So when you click on more, it says reactions, and you can raise your hand.
Where is this mole? Oh, under more. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I'm
sounds
just
like a
raising.
couple of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like
I'll
a
just
couple
raise
of
my hand
us
and say,
are.
yeah.
Thank you, So it's basically a pilot program by the City of Boston to um, look into e-cargo bikes, which are called NOx, and it's basically an alternative mode of transportation to the smaller commercial vehicles that we see that deliver or complete the first and last mile. It can be either Amazon trucks or FedEx trucks. So it's an alternative for that. So if you're interested, I can quickly look into the link and I can drop that in the chat if you want to read more about it. So that's an alternative that is coming up. And since City of Boston is already doing that, I don't see us potentially doing a pilot, but definitely looking into their recommendations might be really helpful to understand their findings. And based on that, there is definitely a potential for us to do a follow-up study um, to find data or other relevant information.
So I have a question. What is the definition of a freight truck or freight vehicle? You know?
That's a great point, and I don't know if I have it on top of my mind.
Right. So I was just wondering if it's a certain size, because I mean, like the vans, I mean, they're like vans.
Yeah.
I mean, so they can be treated, I mean, like
Right.
a non-freight vehicle, and so we could say the parking rules, I mean, apply to them as they do to any kind of passenger vehicle. Whereas I think of a freight truck as something that wouldn't necessarily fit in a parking lane or a parking
Right.
spot, you know. And so now we have to take special measures to handle them. So if I was going to do a demarcation, that's how we do it. But I was just asking me how the NPO handles it, or you handle it, or academia handles it. So okay, that's it. Thank you.
But yeah, I think that's a great point, and I can get back to you on that because
Sure.
there are various types of trucks, and I'm not really sure if delivery vehicles are actually considered trucks because we often refer them as commercial vehicles. But in terms of like parking and other standards, I'm not really sure what the standard is for commercial vehicles. But I will definitely get back to you, Len. That's definitely a great question. Frecoso, I hope I got
No,
your name right.
that was the same. I have a question that kind of feeds off Len's because, you know, the bike program may be a great idea, but if you're talking grocery deliveries of 10 bags of groceries, that's not a one person thing. Like it's not really, I don't see how that's going to replace the problem with these vans, you know, handling items over a certain weight.
Right, that totally makes sense. So one of the topics that is gaining traction is creating freight mobility hubs. So these are like small warehouses where packages are delivered, and these sustainable modes of transportation, like the one that we discussed earlier, the e-cargo bikes, pick up those deliveries from there and they drop it off. So this is there. I know that in Texas they've been doing some research on this, but that's definitely. I think that kind of answers your question. So that's the freight mobility hubs are solution to the problem that you just pointed out. I think we got really great responses for this question. I really appreciate all of your responses. Stella, do you want to go to the next question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the discussion on trucks is a good segue. Just real quick to shout out a few of these responses. If anyone can't see, it's there's a few related to congestion and addressing reducing congestion related to freight, some safety, sharing local streets, understanding regional truck freight travel patterns and data, But these are great. We can share these afterwards with the group as well. Please feel free to hop between these slides or answer any of these questions at any point in the chat as well. But the next question here in the Mentimeter is, what are your concerns on delivery vehicles or trucks in general? So I think we already heard a couple things, but please do feel free to elaborate here. Or again in the chat or by raising your hand.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with my new Zoom here. No, I'm just wondering, you know, my concern is, are we gonna start to see more dedicated freight routes? Is there such a possibility to get this traffic out of real, you know, vehicular and pedestrian traffic, just move it to the side somehow? Is there anything being done to study that or some way?
So this is something that the state has to look into, and right now there are various corridors that are identified as critical freight corridors, and there are definitely restrictions on trucks, especially there's like restriction on, there's height restrictions and there's like weight restrictions on trucks. So certain trucks cannot take certain routes if they, depending on what cargo that they are trying to deliver. So that's I think that kind of answers your question. So there are certain standards that the state has, and they have a set of freight corridors, and they keep updating those freight corridors on a regular basis. And all this is available on MassDOT's website. And recently, MassDOT also published their freight plan. So that's something that I can drop a link to that in the chat in case you're interested to look into that.
We're getting some interesting responses in here again. Some congestion concerns. Also sort of I see also in the chat, some trade-offs between availability for deliveries, loading and parking versus other uses at our roadway, like pedestrian and bicycle accommodations, and sort of the general management of curb space.
These are really great points.
Anyone like to elaborate on any of those, or any questions coming up related to this prompt?
I guess I have a question. Well, maybe I'll wait until the next question because it may be incorporated in that. But if we're going to have nothing but quiet, I'll go ahead and ask it anyways. And you can just tell me if it'll be part of the next question. I mean, how do businesses feel about freight, and freight delivery? Do you have a sense? I mean, or
I'm sorry,
they unsatisfied? How do businesses? Yeah, how do businesses feel about the freight delivery? Is it working for them?
Do you mean specific to businesses that have freight activities involved in their on a regular basis?
Yeah, like let's say your liquor store that's located on Mass Ave, and in a municipality. I mean, well, I guess it'd be considered what a major, minor, probably a minor arterial. I mean, has bus lanes. I mean, people wanting to park. I mean, so I mean, do they feel that they have that they can get their deliveries when they want? I mean, are the companies that are delivering to them saying, "Look, we're having a hard time me parking and getting your stuff when you want it"?
I think this is a very specific question, and
Yeah.
the thing is, we in the past have not really done a lot of public engagement related to freight, and partially that's because it is difficult to get responses from businesses, and so that's one of the challenges related to like freight planning. Getting the right stakeholders um, to get the conversation going is a challenge. So that's one of the reasons why public engagement and outreach is one of the focus areas for the for the upcoming years in our freight program, because we still need to do a lot of work in terms of getting in touch with the businesses and to getting them involved in the freight process. And again, I just want to emphasize that it's a challenge because it's difficult to like get the businesses into the conversation, and this cannot be generalized. There are definitely businesses that are willing to talk to us and give us their opinions, but just in general, finding the right person or finding the right contact for each of the businesses is a challenge. And I myself have faced that in my past work. So that's definitely a challenge, but I hope to have an answer for this in the future. But just in general, businesses are usually like they just want to make sure that they don't lose access, because it's a pretty complicated topic, right? Like if you lose access, then it's just gone. So there's definitely that concern in general, but I'm not sure if I can really like answer that question without a robust outreach and engagement and having some findings based on those engagements.
Gotcha. Have you considered reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce's in the
Yes,
various?
that's one of the items that I
Okay.
have for the near future.
Great, excellent. Okay, thank you.
But thank you for pointing that out, Len. It's definitely helpful because I'm putting together a freight contact list where I'm trying to consolidate all the businesses, all the point of contacts, be it staff as well as like other stakeholders who are interested in freight. So yeah, you're always welcome to bring anyone to my attention. If you think someone can be a good point of contact in terms of like talking to them about freight, anyone can let me know, and I'm happy to include them in as part of the conversation.
I'll just quickly add, the reason I ask is that if everyone's unhappy with the status quo, then it's making it easier to change it. But if businesses are perfectly content with the way it is and we want to change things, it becomes a harder problem to solve. So that's why I asked. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other thing is that we always have to like make sure that we align with whatever the state does, because as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, freight is you cannot constrain it just to a study area or just to like Boston region. It's like interstate. So there's a need for us to like coordinate with the state as well as like with other states and see what they are doing as well.
Gotcha, thanks.
Thank you.
Drones. I like the drones. Yeah, really. That kind of gets over the roadway, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, really. Drones for the small stuff. Oh,
That's an interesting suggestion.
yeah.
We move on to our last question here. All right.
Sure.
And apologies for folks who are struggling with the Mentimeter. Again, please do feel free to just put your comments in the chat, in the Zoom chat. We can address them there, or you can feel free to unmute and participate in the discussion. Happy to sort of take the discussion in any direction in terms of what's working for folks with these tools. The last question here is just how would you like to continue to be engaged or involved in the FRAIT program going forward? Of course, you all now know Shravanti and you have this connection to MPO staff working on FRAIT topics, but you know, if there are other thoughts on how the advisory council could be involved in the development of the program or in specific activities, if there are things you want to stay updated about, we'd love to hear that. Keeping you updated on studies, we absolutely will try to do that. Hopefully also involve you in sort of earlier stages of scoping, you know, future studies and future work. I mean, there seems to be a lot of interest in FRAIT from this group. I know folks have been involved in FRAIT work in the past that the MPO has done, and obviously this is sort of a nice follow-up to our field trip in September to visit Massport. So we want to just, you know, figure out the best way to keep the conversation going here.
So I hate to like reflect. I'm turning the question around on you, but like, how often would you like, you know, to meet with us to get our input? And you're welcome to come back as much as you want, but you give us a sense of what frequency you like, we can work you into the schedule.
So right now, as I mentioned earlier, the NOTS-FX study is being presented to the MPO. Maybe if you or others are participating in the MPO meeting, I would love to hear your thoughts on the project, and as well as on like just in general future studies that you can think of based on our presentation at the MPO meeting. Just in terms of frequency, I think maybe to begin with, I'm happy to join the meetings quarterly to do a quick check-in. And if needed, I'm happy to, you know, do more frequent check-ins. And I'm really happy to connect with whoever is interested in FRAIT. And I really want to move this program forward. So I'm happy to keep the conversation going. And I also am planning to send out an annual newsletter for the FRAIT program. So now that we are wrapping up the NOTS-FX study, you may expect the annual letter sometime early next year. So that's another communication mode that I've been thinking about to keep folks engaged in the FRAIT conversation. And if you know any other you know, communication mediums, I'm happy to join in those as well.
So who else has a FRAIT? Who else studies FRAIT? You know, in the Commonwealth, does MassDOT, and MAPC.
They do.
They do. They both
Yes.
have FRAIT programs. Okay.
Yes, MassDOT, they have a FRAIT planner. I'm not sure about the title, but they have a FRAIT person who works on who works specifically on FRAIT.
Right. Right. And then of course there's Massport. So we can't forget Massport, and that would be a good resource for us to just kind of wrap our heads around it. My thinking is that members of this group, were part of this group long before I was, they have a better handle on it than I do. It means I'm trying to like wrap my brain around it, and not try to like answer questions or deal with things that have already been dealt with. So that's why I'm being relatively quiet on this. Franny?
I was wondering how MassDOT versus the MPO, CTPS versus MAPC's sort of bailiwicks overlap or differ. Like,
that's a great question, Franny. So MassDOT does a lot of so they tackle everything that is at state level. And from my knowledge, MAPC does a lot of projects related to e-bikes, and they mostly work on like technical portions, or they work on technical projects. And we as planning staffs, we take our lead on the planning related projects. So this is the difference between the work that the three organizations do. But a lot of work that MAPC and the Boston MPO, that is the CTPA staff do, they overlap, and we share resources, and that's how we work. We work together. And as I mentioned earlier, MassDOT, they take a look at like the state level, and we also coordinate with them whenever necessary, because we are part of the region. Travis, do you want to add
Yeah,
something to
hi,
that?
hi everyone. Travis Pollock. I'm at Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and I just wanted to just echo what Travanti said. Yeah, we work together. We also coordinate. We have a regular group that coordinates our various programs. So as you mentioned, like the Commonwealth really looks at freight from a larger perspective, discussions with Massport. But for example, on this North Suffolk freight decarbonization study, it was seen as something that we were very interested in from a decarbonization and a new to emerging technologies point of view. So we work together on that. So I have, with my colleague Allison Felix, we have done studies on freight from an e-commerce perspective, because again, we were seeing this as a very interesting dynamic of the world changing of freight deliveries, food deliveries, all kinds of instant, 1 hour to 1 day deliveries, and what was the impacts of that on our transportation system. That evolved into looking at e-commerce impacts on labor, on, land use, on zoning in many ways. But it's not, we're not freight planners per se. So it's kind of like Allison and I took this on, or we really became interested in the e-commerce side. And that's something that we work on. We've done a couple different reports, but we work very well with our colleagues here to try to make sure that we're not duplicating things, but where we can, we share resources, we share information, and so that we do different aspects of freight planning. But I'm not a freight planner. It's not the only thing I do. So, but nonetheless, we do, like I said, we coordinate a lot, but we tackle different areas of freight planning.
Thanks
Hope
for
that
adding
helps.
that, Travis. Yeah.
Thanks, Travis. You mentioned Allison a couple of times. I don't see her here still. I was going to ask her, what she thought about automation and freight, because I know that Allison worked on AVs, a few years ago. So I'll ask you. Do you see any pathways, forward in the near intermediate term that would incorporate more autonomous vehicles into the freight transportation?
Personally, no, at this point, not immediately, Lynn. I'm seeing that's, I think, taking a little further to probably come into the world of freight deliveries and other deliveries. We are seeing some drone deliveries on a very limited basis. The robot deliveries are, again, the very limited aspects of where those things can happen. I think where we are seeing automation, it's inside the warehouses. It's more AI determining better ways to try to improve the freight deliveries, but we're not seeing at this point, at least in the United States, I haven't seen a whole lot of autonomous vehicle deliveries really in any way.
Another quick question is how is the driver? What is there a driver shortage? Is that affecting freight at all in Massachusetts?
I don't know about in Massachusetts. It's been a little while since I've looked at the numbers of the industry, but it's I think a driver shortage is going on pretty much everywhere in terms of people that have a license, that also that have the CDL, and just as we talked about with bus drivers, I think we're seeing similar things on all kinds of freight deliveries as well. But it's been a little while since I've looked at it, right. So I don't know exactly how it is right now.
So if I can add something to that, I recently completed a certificate with NHS, and I think it's the National Highway System, and one of the NHI, sorry. So one of the things that I learned from that is that there is a driver shortage, and I think this is something that is common throughout similar industries, driver shortage, especially after COVID. So there has been a lot of thoughts about like improving environment for the drivers to, make the job profile more attractive. So I just wanted to like quickly add that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Well, we had allotted, up until 3:20 for this topic. And so I'll ask you if you want to wrap things up, any closing parts.
Yes, thank you, Len.
Sure.
So this was anyway the last question. So I think we are right on time. Stella, could you please go to the next question? Sorry, next slide.
Yes. And one moment while I go back to my full presentation here.
So while Stella does that, I just want to drop my email ID in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me and introduce yourself. I would love to connect with all of you. And if you are particularly interested in talking about freight, please do mention that in your email. And I would like to add you to the email distribution list that I was talking about earlier. So on the screen is my email address as well. And I have also dropped it in the chat. And thank you so much all. I really appreciate all your thoughts. I really appreciate you sharing all your thoughts in, for the prompts that we just discussed. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, and I don't know if we'll be able to do it on a quarterly basis, maybe twice a year for sure. But if ever there is a time that you want to come and talk with us, just let us know, and I'm sure that we'll be able to get you on the agenda within a month or two. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank
and if
you.
it's really important, we'll make it a top priority. So well, thank you once again. And with that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Shreka Murthy, who's going to talk with us about the next iteration of the UPWP.
Thanks so much, Len, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me at your meeting today. I'm going to start off my presentation with an icebreaker mapping activity, and then move into providing a bit of an overview of the UPWP development process and like how it's looking this year, including some of the improvements we've been making on the process so far. And then we'll move into a discussion about transportation priorities and needs. So next slide, please, Stella. So with that, I'm going to drop a link in the chat to this tool called Miro. It's pretty similar to a Jamboard, which some of you may have used in the past. This will work best on a desktop or laptop over a phone or tablet, but you can use it on a phone or a tablet as well. On this board, you can navigate down to the region-wide map using your right cursor and scroll to zoom in or out. So I'm going to ask that you drop a sticky note essentially where you see a resiliency or a safety concern somewhere in the region. This could be something like a dangerous pedestrian crossing, an area prone to flooding, or a need for more bike infrastructure, for example. I'll ask that you use the orange sticky notes for resilience and the yellow ones for safety. So we can take about 5 minutes to go through this and think about some of the needs across the region. And if you're not able to move the stickies or navigate through the Miro, please feel free to drop your thoughts in the chat and I'll put them on the board.
I'm sorry, I think I missed a step. Is
Yeah, me
this,
too.
is this on Menti or is it another program?
This
I
is
think
not on
I thought it was
Menti.
whiteboard.
Is
I
it
just dropped
whiteboard?
this link in the chat. No,
But
I
I
just
don't
dropped this in the
I
chat.
don't see a whiteboard. Are we able to, let me see.
There's no whiteboard.
Oh, there's a link in the chat.
The Miro.
Miro?
Called Miro, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Sorry, we're throwing a lot of tools and interactive things that you guys today, but hopefully it spices the meeting up a little bit. And
It's
if anyone's
fine.
having trouble, just feel
I
free to
think
drop
I'm
things in the
just
chat as
darn
well.
confused. Are you seeing my cursor move around now live? Is that what's going on here?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which person you are specifically.
We just
Everyone's
say
on here
visiting
anonymously.
drafter. Okay.
Yeah, it says something like drafter, designer, writer. And again, if you're
It's
not
fine.
able to access it, feel free to drop, you just sort of shout it out in the meeting or drop your concern in the chat and I'll put it on the board.
I'm just having a hard time coming up with anything, so it's not. I can't use a tool. Yes.
Could I be
I'm
able to
drawing
move
blank.
up to Boston? I don't see a way to move up to Boston.
So you can scroll.
Zoom.
Yeah.
It's just
So
not filling
scrolling.
it for some reason. The map isn't expanding.
No, you have to scroll to zoom in. It won't go down to a deeper sort of geographical level. It's going to stay the same, but it will make the map bigger.
Hmm.
There
Yeah.
should be like plus and minus buttons in the bottom right corner as well to zoom in and out.
Huh.
Well, I just wrote something just as a trial and I'm not really seeing what the heck is going, what, if you see that, do you see that flooding?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right, because I'm wondering, not only is a flooding issue, but you're looking at backing up access, like that's a major, like the Longwood Medical Area is a flood
Mhm.
zone, and like, I'm wondering how that's gonna get worked on, looked at.
Yeah, so I'm going to add that to your sticky just so we know where we're talking about the Longwood Medical Area flooding.
Yeah, because if ambulances can't get through, if people lose emergency services, I don't know. I'm concerned about this. Also, of course, the entire new C district, the Wharf district, has got flooding and issues, and they have multiple residencies and businesses there now. How are they gonna get out? I mean, historically, Boston is an island at high tide. It's all fill.
I'm
What was the
seeing,
difference between the yellow and the orange again?
the orange stickies are for resiliency concerns and the yellow ones are for safety.
Can I switch mine to orange?
Yeah, is it this one? I'll switch it for you.
Yeah, the Longwood Medical Area and the C Wharf district, the new C district.
By safety, do you mean safety in the face of climate change, or do you mean just safety?
No. So safety and resiliency in a bit like kind of in separate senses, right? So safety is like pedestrian crossings, bike infrastructure, dangerous intersections, whereas resiliency is more
Climate.
a compromised culvert or or somewhere that's prone to heat risk or flooding.
Okay.
The oh, The urban heat island affects in inner core communities. Heat with bus stops and streetcar stops. That's a really important one. Something we definitely hear a lot of. Bike head safety concern on state highway routes in Somerville. Certainly a big one, I'm sure, in other communities as well. If anyone wants to elaborate on any of these or just sort of like call out in the chat or verbally any sort of high level or specific safety or resilience concerns, feel free to do so as well.
I mean, I guess I'm confused because to me, the safety is, I mean, if it's not resilient, it is the safety, like they're the same thing to me. I don't understand how to separate them so easily. I mean, if you can't, you know, once you finally get to a safer area of it, how do you bring it back so it's resilient and it bounces back and the services and life go back to the way they were? That's resiliency. So I'm confused why we're separating them. I don't understand.
So the reason that we're kind of going through this exercise is that the MPO is looking to focus more of its work, just generally speaking, on the themes of equity, safety, and resiliency in the coming years. And safety and resiliency are kind of easier to pinpoint on a map than equity.
I mean, they kind of all work together to me. I don't understand how to separate them in my head. They all are the same. They all merge. I don't understand.
Well, I can
I mean, to
appreciate
be
that.
resilient, you want to go back to the way it was. You want it to improve the, you know, the equity version of it, whatever it is, for people to get back and do things that they were. I don't understand.
Well, I can appreciate that, AC. And you know, if you can't separate them, you can't separate them. So just treat them as one and the same, and then answer it that way. You know what I mean? You know, some people can break things down more easily than others, and that's okay. It's just a different way of thinking. You know, so I think you can still contribute even if you don't separate them. Fine with that?
Yeah, I mean, if I could make my sticky multicolored.
Or maybe you can make it a different color, or you can just put ACF on it and we'll know, that's coming from you and that you're treating them one and the same.
I like it.
Andy, did you have a question or something to add?
I was just going to say too, I mean, I think something responding to AC a bit, some safety concerns may not be resiliency concerns. And I think it might be good to, also say that there are some things that do overlap, of course, but some of the traffic safety stuff definitely is probably not going to also have a concern with resiliency unless there's a strong overlap. So, if anything, if there are some like traffic safety things that maybe are just about the geometries and not necessarily about some of the other kind of concerns about general safety and kind of resiliency, I think that might be one way to think about at least the yellow stickies that are on screen.
Yeah, so thank you for participating, for dropping these stickies down. This is going to stay up. This link will continue to work. So if you have any thoughts during the presentation, feel free to drop them in here. And we are kind of just continuously reviewing this. But still, I think we can go back to the slides. Can you have a sec? Sorry, are we here? Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you for participating, that, for your patience with this. So I'm going to jump into discussing the federal fiscal year 2025 UPWP. This year, the surveys and the discrete studies program are taking on a slightly different format compared to previous years. Our survey is live, it is still open, and it is still asking for your input on our work over the coming fiscal year. So that has not changed. Sorry, my screen's not working. The input that we're collecting through our outreach this year will inform the kind of work the MPO does primarily through its work programs. So the core programs are the TIP, the UPWP, and the Long Range Transportation Plan. And our support programs include climate resiliency, transportation equity, performance-based planning and programming, the congestion management process, bicycle and pedestrian support, freight, as you've heard today, the public engagement program, multimodal mobility infrastructure, and the regional model development. So we are really looking to innovate and explore the, I guess, possibilities of our work programs. And we're really looking to push the MPO's goals and objectives forward. And so all that being said, study topics or ideas that may not fit neatly into one of these categories can still be considered for independent research. Next slide, please. When staff evaluate survey responses, priority will be given to topics that can be studied within a program, within one of those programs that I just outlined, and to ideas that can inform MPO work down the line. We will also have space for independent, like small one-off studies, but the majority of the work done by MPO staff will be conducted through a work program. This allows for staff to plan their work over the span of a couple of years and assess their progress on a continuous basis, meaning that we can adjust our priorities and our work products as we need to. Generally speaking, like I just said, our preference is for smaller scale studies. That means, you know, under 30 to 40K, kind of small one-offs. Those types of studies we might not have funded in the past, but that's kind of what we're looking to do more in the future. Next slide, please. So I'm going to briefly go over our development timeline. Between now and February, of course, we are conducting our outreach. We are collecting topics and priorities for us to work on in the coming fiscal year. The survey is open. In January, we'll find out how much money we're getting from the U.S. Department of Transportation. In February and March, staff will commence and then complete their program work planning. We'll be developing our budgets, and our study ideas will be categorized by work program area. During this time, we'll be back. I'll come back to this body to present the universe of proposed studies. We'll also be presenting to the Unified Planning Work Program Committee. In April, we'll be finalizing the list of independent research studies that we'll be funding for the coming fiscal year, and we'll finish writing the document itself. At this time, I hope you'll all be able to submit a list of your recommended studies for staff to use in our evaluation. Between May and June, we'll be conducting the public comment period for the federal fiscal year 2025 UPWP and requesting endorsement of the document itself. Next slide, please, Stella. So at this point, I want to open it up for discussion. I'm happy to go back and clarify any points. Previously, we have some questions on the screen to kind of guide the conversation. You know, is there interest in developing a few proposals as a group? What are your transportation priorities that you'd like to see studied or worked on? And what programs would you like to engage with more this year? For this last point, of course, this is something Stella has been doing already, bringing some of our program managers to present to this group like today. But are there other programs that you'd like to engage with more, other work that you'd like to, I guess, learn about? So with that, we can sort of jump into discussion.
AC? And feel free to call people too. It's really good. Whoever sees them first. AC?
I'm just wondering if we're going to get a matrix to vote on of the study for this year, like we did last time, where we can prioritize what we think is important rather than, you know, these key buzzwords. You know, it's easy to say, but where is the list of actual action items that we can vote on? Focus here, focus there.
Yeah, so that is what we're calling the universe of proposed studies, which has been in years past too. So between March, April, I'll be coming back to this council to present and get your input. And hopefully at that point, you'll also be able to vote on some studies that you would then sort of present to us as your recommended list of studies.
Andy?
Yeah, one kind of just general question that I have. I don't think I've seen this in previous UPWPs, but I'll bring some of my experience in Cambridge in right now to just say that another colleague of mine is actually working on our hazard mitigation planning. I believe that CTPS has had a role in the past, like emergency management and similar kind of hazard mitigation planning. But one of the particular issues that I know is one of the hardest to deal with in that kind of context is transportation around some of the hazards and planning around disasters. And I'm just wondering if maybe you could be able to do some research and see if there's been previous UPWP ideas on that topic. We're trying to work through it a little bit together in Cambridge, and I think this is common around the region. There's just such a large number of people without cars, and a lot of the thinking is, right, people can self-evacuate in the case of a disaster, and that's not necessarily a true assumption for so many people. So we're trying to work through that right now, just a little bit in our thinking, but you know, is something that is top of mind. So I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, that's something we could definitely look into. And if you're also interested, I can put you in touch with our climate resiliency planner. I'm sure this is something that she would be interested in discussing with you guys as well.
Any?
Yeah, I was wondering if who are the people or agencies that tend to apply for UPWP studies? Or is it just all a matter of recommending? But I'm trying to figure out if municipalities speak up on their own behalf of their area, or anyway, who generally comes, and do you ever reach out to make sure there's sort of equitability throughout the region? Do you ever like go to all of the areas and remind them, okay, these UPWP studies are able to be done. This is the kind of things that you can apply or see to be done. I guess it's not really an application process, it's more a recommendation, and then you decide. But anyway, to sort of handhold in a way the communities, so that the communities that don't tend to think about this might tend to more likely look for studies. I was wondering if you do that.
Yeah, so I'll answer the first part of your question. Generally, the people that are submitting study ideas to the survey, it's people. Agencies might submit studies, like we'll have a list of study suggestions from MassDOT. Sometimes the T will submit stuff. But for the most part, it is really just people submitting their study ideas of things they're interested in and would like to see done. In terms of reaching out to our subregions, and that's something that we have just recently wrapped up. We've been going to all of the MAPC subregional meetings, presenting to them, telling them, this is what we're doing, here's our survey, here's how you can engage with the MPO, not just for the UPWP, but also for the TIP. So yeah, that is something that we really do prioritize, and it's funny you say that we just finished doing that. So that's something we definitely care about a lot too.
And I'm going to go to AC. I have one quick question. So when is the deadline for us to get in, our ideas?
February 1st.
February 1st. Okay, thank you. You probably said that and I missed it. Thank you. AC?
No, just to Andy's point, now that I have a sister who is handicapped, like evacuation and mobility in general, for people who don't have access, I'd like to see a study on that as well, especially since there's an aging population in and around the immediate Boston area. It's not just Boston.
Yeah. Thanks. Any other questions, comments? I think I see Franny.
Yeah, just one more. I just clicked on the link. If people have multiple studies, should they keep on doing it separately in separate boxes, or keep writing in the same box?
It's easier for me to go through them if they're in separate boxes.
Okay, so you're just refreshing the screen.
Yeah, or like you can submit the thing multiple times. That's totally fine.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate the change in approach, it makes sense, and we had an impressive universe last time. It'll be interesting to see what we get this time, and yeah, it was yeah, I was really impressed with the universe last time. And I mean, we had a small amount of money. I mean, and I'm glad that you're emphasizing people that studies should be on a smaller side, because I think that'll increase the chances that more studies get funded, and what was I going to say? So I know you won't know how much money until, what'd you say, January, but do we have a sense of whether it's going to be in the same ballpark? Meaning, like, are there big factors that are going to influence, the amount of money that we have on the downside primarily?
Let me think. So we get the numbers from MassDOT,
Yeah.
USDOT in January, and we develop our initial budget projections around March. So around March, we'll have the actual numbers of how much money each program is getting and how much money we'll have for these independent studies. I get the sense that it's going to be similar, like a similar amount to last
Okay.
year. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. So Andy? No, we want to hold you to that, okay? So Andy?
Thank you.
It might be a little early to ask this, but actually I think it's early, but are there any indications about current UPWP projects that might want to have a part 2, part 3, continuing in some way? Even if they were the smaller discrete studies, that, kind of seem to be natural things for us to think about in terms of any, feedback that we give.
Yeah, let me think about that.
Lab parking part 3, Andy.
Right.
That's the one thing that I can think of that might have a part 3, but nothing for now is confirmed. That's something that we discuss in like March, April to see whether we need to continue any studies.
AC?
Again, going off of Andy, we've asked for this in the past when we did all the minutes and we went back and saw everything. We've had guests that have run pilot programs and the results of the studies. I feel like we never really see the results. I'd like to hear from the results from some of the pilot studies that have gone on. I'd like to see the results of the studies. I feel like I haven't. Or maybe they've just been going by and I have too many emails or something.
You mean you're talking about the results of the studies that have been done as a part of UPWP?
Yeah, the final product.
Yeah, so I guess that's on me then if I'm not reporting back from the board meetings, when the results of the studies are presented, but pretty much every study, that is a discrete study that we're approving in UPWP gets reported back to the board, and usually within the fiscal year, that the study is in, every once in a while the results I think will come out in the next fiscal year, but so if you have anything in particular that you want, AC, I'll be happy to go back and get it. If you just want us to do something systematically, then I'll put that on my
remember
list.
that the first last mile connection study that was being done, I think it was being done out in Beverly, and they came as guests, and I wanted to see what the results were from that pilot program.
I'm not remembering that one, and so they were guests in our group?
They were guests, yeah, in one of the meetings.
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
this is like a couple years ago at this
a couple
point.
years ago. Okay, all right. Well, I will search through the site and see what I can find, and then get back to you directly, AC, unless you want it as part of a meeting.
Well, I'll piggyback on her because I agree. I would love to see some of the best presentations I've seen over time were when somebody working on a study, I don't remember if it was UPWP study or a different type, would come to our meetings and present what they've been doing and what their results were. And so I was going to suggest that. So I would love to have it come to a meeting. Any comments on those, and also to hear from Shalika or our other staff, what types of studies or what specific studies have you or the people who do the studies been especially excited about, or thought, wow, this was a good idea, or this is scalable, or should be looked at somewhere else, or something like that, to sort of give other people ideas?
I can answer that briefly, just personally what I've been excited about. Right now, I am working on the study that one of the studies that we funded last year, applying Conveil to TIP project scoring, along with a few other members of our team, like in MPO activities and other staff across the agency. And it's essentially looking at how we can use Conveil, which is a web-based destination access tool, really measuring, how easy is it for people to get to a certain destination, like a grocery store, schools, hospitals, like municipal services, from a given starting location, and how that access might change based on a project in the TIP. So if this project is funded, how is this going to improve or affect access for people trying to get one place to another? So we're still in the sort of beginning phases of that work, but it's something we're really excited about, and we're really hoping that the results are something that we can use in future TIP scoring. So that is something that we will be presenting to the MPO next year once the study is completed. So like next summer.
And I think a way to get a handle on that, Franny, is to look at the staff suggested studies. I mean, the last cycle, you'll get a sense of what it is that they think is exciting and things that they want to pursue.
That's a good idea.
And with respect to the presentations that you've gotten about studies are usually a result of me seeing a presentation, me at a board meeting, and saying, I'm not going to ask you a lot of questions now. I'll ask you to come to advisory council meeting, and talk with us there. When I first started as chair, I used to ask people, to look at the agenda and let me know if they had any questions regarding anything that's on the agenda. And that was kind of my way of trying to encourage people to look at the agenda for the board meetings to see what's coming up. What I can try to do is when I see a study, that's going to be presented at one of those meetings, I can let you all know that that's going to be at that meeting, and then you can give me a sense as to whether you want to have that come before the council. But when those presentations are made, they're usually part of, well, there's a memo that accompany the presentation, and the memo is usually very impressive. And so to the extent you want something systematically done, I can work to just pull out those memos, and send you the link to them, but the information is there. So I see a electronic thumbs up from, I think that's AC, because she's right next. Yeah, it is AC. Okay. All righty. Well, we're at 3:50, and that's the time that we have allotted. So if there's a last burning question, now's the time. Otherwise, we're going to express our appreciation to Zuleika and look forward to her return. What, February, you said? January, February?
February, March. We'll see how I can
March.
get on the schedule.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll make some space because you know how I feel about the UPWP. All righty. Well, thank you once again. And
thank you.
So we're going to move on to the chair's report. And one thing that I wanted to highlight is this new committee that has been formed by the board, and it's called the TIP Process Engagement Readiness Committee. And it had its first meeting towards the end of, well, it was in October. And it was a good meeting, and if Stella, if you have a chance, can you maybe put the link to Ethan's presentation in the chat, and I want people to take a look at this, when you have some time, and give me your feedback on some of the answers, or some of the questions that were posed in the presentation, and if you have questions that you think should be added or anything that we should consider, please let me know. I think we're going to have an advisory council meeting before the next TIPper meeting, but still, I mean, if you could just send me your questions, that would be good, or your comments, that would be good. And I don't advise sending it to all the group, just to stay within the confines of open meeting law. I had a little conversation with Ethan afterwards. Initially it was to ask some questions, but it ended up being more general discussion. But I do have a lot of questions myself, and to the extent we can discuss them at the next meeting if we have time, we will. But certainly if you all present questions, I'll probably be more interested in discussing those. But I think you'll find Ethan's presentation, at least the things he asked us to consider, very interesting, and I think it'll help us create a better process for creating the TIP. And so that's it. I actually set aside more time on this because I was thinking that I would do a little presentation of Ethan's presentation that had my questions integrated into it. But partly it was just a bandwidth problem for me, but also I was thinking I prefer not to lead you all with my questions. I'm kind of more interested in what you come up with on your own, but if there's very little feedback from me by the next meeting, then I will lay out what I'm thinking, and that may change a little bit, because if Ethan has the time, I may try to talk with him again this time, pepper him with questions more so than comments. So I see Ethan here, and Ethan, it's not my intention to put you on the spot. So only if you want to say something, should you say something. If you don't, that's totally fine. So I'll ask the group, you have any questions, comments about just the general thrust of what I said? Oh, there's Ethan.
Yeah, thanks, Len. Just because you volunteered me, I wouldn't show up if I wasn't willing to talk. The TIPper meetings or the TIP process engagement and readiness committee meetings are public as well. So if any folks do want to attend, we try to have them every other month, and they are posted on the MPO calendar. We are likely looking at mid-December, usually around in the afternoons on Thursdays, around 2 o'clock or so, but that's flexible. We'll try to be getting announcements for these events coming out earlier in the coming months. But everyone's welcome to attend.
And Jen Rowe is the chair of it. So for those of you who have been around a while, maybe remember Jen, because she used to work with she was on CTPS and used to do some work with us. And so yeah, we're getting kind of down in the weeds, on the TIP process, but I think it has a lot of potential. The only thing that makes me a little less enthusiastic about it is that I'm kind of wondering where the band was going to come from, but we'll figure out something, but overall it's good. And actually, it's I think it's just 6, is it 4 or 6 meetings a year, Ethan?
Great question.
We don't know yet. Okay.
Officially, we have about 6, but given as many RTAC members may know, we have a lot of deliverables in the spring. Yeah. There may be additional meetings added based on how things progress over a given TIP cycle. So usually at least 6.
Okay. Oh, at least 6. I thought you were going to say a maximum of 6, but okay. All right. So and like I said, the only thing that makes me have that response is just the bandwidth, because I think, in terms of the way my brain works and the way I like doing policy and abstracting things, it's really right up my alley, and so we'll see, but maybe I can get some help from Franny or someone else. If attendance at other meetings is required, because it's not that well, yes, I do want to participate in these meetings, but I do also realize my limitations, and a lot of times I just want to do something interesting because I just don't have the time. But thankfully, Tegan made it clear that the advisory council should be a member of any subcommittee of the board. So it's kind of a mandate, and it's a good mandate, and we're going to do our best participate. So that's it. But once again, please take a look at the slide deck, because it's I think it's a good start, and also I encourage you to I'm going to volunteer Ethan. I encourage you to reach out to Ethan if you have any questions, or you want to make comments on your own, and also I'm also sure that Jen Rowe would be open to talking or meeting with other folks. So AC.
Sorry, just really broadly, this
Sure.
goes to Ethan and also Srelika, but I put it in as one of my suggestions, but I would like to see more cohesion happening, especially we've been talking about freight and, resiliency and safety, all this stuff. How are we working with other immediate RTAs, outside of this one particular MPO? How are you scoring things with what other RTAs are doing or other MPOs outside of the Boston region? Like where's the cohesion? Is everyone going to be operating in isolated bubbles? Like what is happening? I'm somewhat confused.
Yeah. Well, I will say that we Massachusetts, I don't know if Massachusetts is alone in this, but in our case, the Department of Transportation here, is a member of all of the regional MPOs, and so they are, I think, very much aware of what's going on in the MPOs. I can't think of a time when we've said this crosses a border of another MPO and it is weighted differently because of that. But it may be that I'm just not thinking of it, and maybe that most of our projects are far enough from the borders of our MPO that it's just not something that we have had to consider. You could say that's a problem in and of itself, though, and so I hear you, AC.
I could add something real quick, Len, to that, just on the staff side, because I know this comes up here sometimes. The question of like sort of where we sit in the broader picture of what's going on in the state, and we do coordinate with the other MPOs in Massachusetts. We have a regular meeting with them, staff from those MPOs. So we're thinking about each other's work and what's coming through the pipeline for all of us that we have to be thinking about. Often these big picture things like our long range planning happens along similar time frames, so we're able to sort of coordinate along those lines. Again, as Len said, we work very closely with Mass DOT. They participate on the board. They work really closely with staff, so they bring that state perspective and the perspective of other regions in the state as well to our work. But the mandate of the Boston Region MPO is to plan for the Boston region specifically. So that is our focus, and that is this group's geographic focus by default there. Not to say we can't look at broader concerns, and especially I see in the chat, like things like resilience obviously don't confine to a specific region or even a specific state, but in terms of the planning we're able to do, the decisions we're able to make, the money we allocate, that is really focused directly on the Boston region itself.
Okay, I understand that. I'm just like wondering how cohesion comes into play. If we're planning, especially for an emergency, but just in general as well, just overlapping services, transportation services, assuming the Boston 2050 plan of electrifying the system, supposedly the Capital Corridor is getting developed. So now we're going up into New Hampshire with the MBTA, how is it all working together? I don't seem to always have a full understanding.
Right. Well, let's see what we can do to fill that gap, and to the extent you want to help lead the charge on that, I'm definitely receptive to working with you on it. One of the things I've wanted to do and just never gotten around to doing, and it's mainly because our agenda just gets pretty packed, and is maybe have a separate meeting where we can try to have we could meet with other RTAs, across the Commonwealth. And so I'm sure it'll be a
Are there
challenge.
other RTACs?
Yeah, there
in
are.
Other districts that you know of?
Well, I know they exist. I asked Matt Archer to get me that information. He did, and I felt badly that I didn't follow through and coordinate a meeting. But I think if we want to maybe do like an extra meeting in a given month, we can pull it off. Make it really worth everyone's
I
while.
think, yeah, I'm thinking it'd be kind of fun to have like an unorganized hour Zoom meeting of all the transportation nerds and just see, just very loose and
Yeah.
organic, see what everyone has to say from
Well, if
other
you-
RTACs,
Yeah.
what
you
they're
have-
servicing.
Well, if you have a vision for that, and you want to help me work on it or even take the lead on it, I very much appreciate it. I'd be happy to support you all the way. But if you don't have the bandwidth, I'll try and make it happen. So why don't we touch base on that? Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Franny?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just realized I was off of mute, so I probably was making a lot of noise. I wanted to, when you're done with your thing, I would like to make just 2 little announcements. Is that okay?
Could that be an old business, new business member items?
Yeah, it could be.
Okay, great. So then we're going to do the minutes, and then we'll be at that section. So I'm going to shut up and move on to the minutes. And Stella?
Yes, so today we are only presenting one set of minutes. That's from July 12th of this year. If you remember, we had brought these to a vote at the last meeting and there was an update requested. That update has been made. So the updated minutes are posted to the calendar today and would ask for a motion and second to approve those. Or are there any questions?
I move that we approve.
Second.
Slide 12.
All right. So Amira, do you have a question?
Second.
Okay. All right.
No, I was supporting the motion.
Okay. I don't know if you're in a position to do that, Amira. Because I don't think the advisory board's a member of the group. So thanks though. So let's do the roll call.
All right. Len Diggins,
Yes.
Anna Cristina Fragoso,
Yes.
Randy Osman,
Yes.
Fred Mosley.
I'll have to abstain.
Okay. John McQueen,
Yes.
John Seward, is John Seward still on the call? He might have
I
dropped
think we
off.
lost him.
All right. I will move on then to Owen McDonald,
Yes.
Scott Zadikis,
Yes.
and Andy Reeker.
I.
All right. That motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right. So we're in old business, new business member items. Let's go right to Franny.
One was, if you didn't see the Globe today, Amtrak awarded nearly $10 billion for 12 Northeast Corridor projects. So take note of that. Very interesting and encouraging, except one of those projects isn't the North-South Rail Link. So that's the other thing I wanted to say. I will share a link in the chat right after this to a piece of paper that explains why you should contact the governor and ask your legislators to within this next week, because the North-South Rail Link, the $10 million that was in the transportation bond bill from 2018 sat there and was never spent, and it needs to be renewed. The bond bill needs to be reauthorized, and then the $10 million again could be spent for environmental impact studies for the North-South Rail Link. So I'm trying to encourage everybody to contact the governor and say, sign that, because the deadline is November 15th. So I'll share the little poster via a link in a moment in the chat.
And
Thank
maybe another person to reach out to would be the acting Secretary of Transportation. Probably has the governor's ear also on this matter. Just a suggestion.
My experience is that she's very focused on bus more than rail, and I haven't heard her like get going.
Well,
But main thing is that the governor's the one that has to re-sign it. So
yeah,
but
yeah, I hear you.
yes, maybe we could get Monica's encouragement of the governor.
Yeah, well, it was a suggestion, and if you have a good reason, it sounds like you do, for paying less attention to that suggestion, then pay less attention to it. It's not like all my suggestions are good, you know. So I hear you. All right. Any other members items or old business, new business? Well, I have a member item. I mean, that's going to probably lead to something regular on our agenda, and I had a good conversation with Susan Barrett. She talked with us a while ago, about the issues that we have with connecting, all of our various transit services. And so as I mentioned the last time, we had the transit working group meeting, and there was a good presentation by Jonathan Church, and his group over at OTP, and I'm blanking out on what Office of Transportation.
Planning.
What's the P? Planning. Thank you. Thank you. So I kind of want to make that topic be something regular in our meetings. Even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm going to be coming to you, Fran, and see if I can get some help on this, where we can try to just maintain some level of energy on this topic, and I won't say that we can make progress from month to month, but maybe set some goals, something that we can achieve, and I'll clue you in on some of the other things that I discussed with Susan at the next meeting, perhaps. But I want to circle back to Susan and have a little more of a conversation with her about how to move forward. So that's it. So we're at 4:09, but I have nothing else. Anyone else has anything else? So we're gonna get 6 minutes back.
But look at your chat before you go and click on that link.
Okay.
Thanks.
Alrighty. You're welcome. And
You need a
so-
motion.
yes, I do.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
And can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, so a motion to adjourn by Ana Cristina Fregoso and a second by Andy Rica. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Have a good Thanksgiving or whatever you celebrate or
Oh,
not celebrate.
yes.
So
Bye.
all right.
Thanks, everyone.
Time off. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You.